I believe that my guy wasn't the only Mark out there. I believe that this was her full-time job, that she was going around and luring older, gullible, desperate men who were eager to get the girlfriend experience.
Okay, everybody, welcome to Cases Gone Wild. We're back at you again. We have a very exciting episode today and kind of a first for us today. You know, normally we trash insurance companies and corporations all day on the show. Today, we're going to get the other perspective. We have a very special guest with us today who actually does defense work, which means he defends people who are getting sued, insurance companies and corporations. We're going to talk about some of the craziest cases gone wild that he's seen. I'm your host, John Marko. As you know, I've been practicing for about 2 decades, and I've seen some of the craziest, most insane cases that you won't believe, and we talk about them on this show. Each show, we bring on great attorneys to give perspectives and different episodes. And by the way, people, I want to let you know, I heard from a lot of people that they didn't know that there's actual live video of this show. If you want to watch us and not just hear us, please go to our YouTube channel. That's Marko Law, Cases Gone Wild. If you type it in on Google and follow us. If you like us, please be sure to subscribe and share to your friends. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, great attorney, trial lawyer extraordinaire, which I can't say about a lot of people.
Appreciate that.
But Tony Randazzo, thank you for coming on the show, Tony.
It's a pleasure, John. Pleasure.
Thank you for being here. And Tony is, you have a very impressive resume. So you're a partner at Seacrest Wardle, which is a very well-known defense firm. And I think they're well-known for trying a lot of cases.
Yeah, we tried probably about 20 cases in the last calendar year. So.
That's amazing. That's more than most firms. I know that your firm values trying cases, which I respect. You guys are formidable adversaries. I don't like seeing you on my cases that much, but...
Feelings mutual, John. Feelings mutual.
So Tony's the chair of the Trucking and Commercial Vehicle Practice Group, and you have a very diverse practice here. You've done all kinds of stuff, and we're going to talk about some of that today, but toxic torts, so environmental torts, commercial and business law, governmental litigation, you've done it all, which you have to be intelligent and you have to have a wide skill set to be able to shift between practice areas. It's like a doctor, you know, you're like working on the heart, then you're working on the brain, then you're working on the feet. So there's not a lot of people that can do that. So I think that says a lot about you. You graduated from University of Detroit. You went to Oakland University. You're a Michigander.
Yep.
Live with your family in Rochester Hills, is it?
Shelby Township.
Shelby Township.
Very close, on the border.
Shelby Township. All right. You have a great family, beautiful wife, and beautiful kids.
I appreciate that, John.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about, your practice and what you do, because you're the first defense attorney on our show. What does it mean to be a defense attorney?
Well, I'm the first for everything, so that's great. It's a lot of fun. My firm handles primarily cases that come to us from an insurance carrier. The insurance carrier will have an insured who's been sued for something. Could be anything. Could be from a slip and fall, a trucking accident. I do advertising injury, copyright, trademark, anything that potentially is covered by insurance, we may handle. So the carrier will call us up, and then we handle the case. And because we're a full service litigation insurance defense firm, you got to be nimble in terms of the types of areas that you're able to practice and be proficient in. So I've been doing that the last 20 years almost, and my firm's been doing it for I think 120 years. So we just try to keep that tradition going. We produce a lot of good trial lawyers around town, and we want to keep that going. That's why we don't like to see a lot of the alumni on the other side of the cases, because we know they're well trained. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And we do talk about insurance companies, and kind of I like to trash on insurance companies through my personal experience. But I found you to be a very upstanding and ethical attorney, candid attorney. Now, you fight like hell, but there's a lot to be said about that, to be able to have a mutual respect, because we're on different sides, Tony, Yeah,
you know what? What most people don't realize is everyone as a lawyer thinks they have the best case, right? And I think you have to be intellectually honest about the facts of the case. Sometimes it comes in and the carrier doesn't have all the information to make a decision. But the carriers that I get my cases from, primarily all of them, will pay what they owe. And that's kind of the mantra that they have. Contrary to common belief, that is consistent. Now, sometimes you have, on both sides, zealous advocates who I think, because of ego, lose sight of their client or the insurer's mantra, because there's no sense in defending a case where there's no defense, because it's going to run up the insurance costs in terms of the attorney fees, and it's going to expose your client. And sometimes the insurance isn't enough to cover your client's potential loss. And I don't represent the insurance carrier. I represent the individual who they may insure. So my focus is never on in terms of how much dollars and cents the insurance carrier will pay. It's how much is at risk for my client.
And that's what it's supposed to be. But what you're saying, is true. Like, we have cases, for example, like let's say a drunk driver, or maybe not a drunk driver, distracted driver, hits someone, kills them. Okay, that's a huge potential liability case, right? Could be millions of dollars. But maybe that person only has $100,000 of insurance. And so you're paid by the insurance company to represent that person through their own insurance. Right. But ultimately, your ethical obligations, first and foremost, are to the client, which is the person, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes, there's situations in most policies where the carrier can settle the claim without the consent of the insured, except for malpractice cases.
Yeah.
But vice versa, if a client, it's a huge exposure and the client doesn't want to pay, or there's a principled reason not to pay and to go forward with it because it has an effect on their life. I just tried a case over the summer where the individual was like, I don't want to be labeled as to killing someone, to be the cause of someone's death. And I got to stand up because even a settlement isn't going to get that mark off of what's going on and how people perceive me and how the accident occurred. So sometimes the clients are very steadfast, and it's an opportunity not just to be heard, but potentially to be vindicated. And that's important.
That is important. That's what it's about.
And you got to counsel them, because that could be an expensive proposition. If principle, it sounds great in theory, but if they got hit for millions of dollars, they're like, well, why didn't you tell me that, and
these are things we have to consider on both sides. So we talk about, and look, there's a lot of lawyers out there. You see these billboards everywhere. There's a lot of cases. I'm lucky in my practice that I can pick and choose my cases at this point in my career. It wasn't always like that. But there's some, there's no question, there's some cases that are just should never be filed. And so we always talk on this show about how unreasonable the insurance companies are, blah, 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 which I believe on my cases. But I want to hear from your perspective on those cases that I don't have. What's the worst case gone wild, like the shittiest case that you've ever seen?
Oh, there's so many, John. There was a recent case within the last couple of years where a mother and daughter live up, upper region of Michigan, and they said that they were injured in a car accident. It was a fender bender, but they were claiming some extraordinary injuries.
So fender bender, like little damage, just like a tap and go.
Yeah, little damage that wouldn't really produce much in terms of damage, no serious damage.
Okay.
Whatsoever. And the claims were that these mother and daughter suffered significant head trauma.
Like brain damage?
Traumatic brain injuries.
Okay.
And so we get the case, and it leaps off the page because we look at the damage of the vehicle, and it's like, there ain't no way this accident produced those injuries. And
now, low impact can sometimes cause injuries if you hit your head or something like that.
Absolutely. You got to look at every one of the cases on its own merit and see if there's acceleration, deceleration forces. So it may not tell the whole story. But when you look at the litany of medical records, the providers who are providing the services, it causes us always to kind of scratch our head, say, causes a little bit question in our mind.
Like maybe she's faking it.
Maybe she's faking it, and the providers may be the experts we've seen before. And so in this case, I got the case, and I'm like, okay, we do what's called an iChat or background search on all of the plaintiffs. I mean,
so iChat is you can get like their criminal background.
That's right.
Okay.
Get their criminal background, do a social media search, dive, because sometimes they just leave it out there for everyone to see. And in this case, we noticed that about 3 months after this traumatic accident, as they alleged, and all these injuries, the plaintiff had an altercation at a McDonald's. Okay.
So just like a separate day.
Separate day.
So there's this lady, she's claiming that she's like so brain damaged, she can't do anything in her life?
She can't move out from her house. She needs a caregiver. She can't do anything.
Like completely disabled.
She's completely unable to do common things in her life.
So what happened at McDonald's?
So we're like, okay, there's an altercation at McDonald's. So we pull the police report, and we notice that there's video, and we're like, oh, well, this happened 3 months after the accident. It's been less than a year since that altercation. Let's see if McDonald's still has the video. McDonald's didn't have it, but the police department certainly still did, because she was charged with assault and battery. And when we got the video, I kid you not, I get the video. I see that someone, a male, is walking from a McDonald's exit going to their car. Then there's a female, which looks to be the plaintiff, who shouldn't have been out of bed.
So the lady that was saying she was disabled and needed a caregiver, a nurse, and all this stuff.
There was a miracle that day, apparently, and she's able to not just go to the McDonald's.
She wanted those nuggets, man.
Right, one of those nuggets. And this is my McDonald's case. She is out there with a crowbar, hunting this guy down, just whacking.
With a crowbar?
With a crowbar. Whacking him.
On video.
On video. Now, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is a lady who is claiming all these injuries. And so her credibility went downhill. It also showed in the police report that there are some pills in the
drugs. Juries don't like drugs and people beating strangers with crowbars.
They don't like liars.
They don't like liars.
And I think that's what that case came down to, because when I deposed her about a year after the McDonald's incident, about a year and a half after she filed the case, I asked her, what could you do after that accident? And nothing. She can't do anything.
So she's saying in the court case, I was so hurt by this accident, I'm basically an invalid. I can't do anything.
Can't do anything. I'm brain damaged. I can't drive myself anywhere. I haven't driven myself anywhere. I can't take care of myself. I can't. And she's claiming also not just traumatic brain injury, but also injuries to her back, neck. I can't move.
And she didn't know that you had this McDonald's beatdown video.
No, and she clearly didn't know, because during the course of the examination, I was basically, you can't move, you can't contort your body, you can't lift up a crowbar, you can't swing it and hit somebody. I mean, I went through it all, and she was saying, no, I couldn't do it. She was agreeing with me.
Did you show her the video?
I didn't show her the video then, but I got her locked in to all the things. I was basically watching the video on my screen while I'm asking the questions of her, because I think this was like right during COVID, so like over to Zoom. So I'm Zoom. Watching. I got all these cameras. So I'm asking her like a play-by-play, like you can't do this, agreeing with me, and then I file a motion. And then the case gets settled. And they wanted just several $1 million. And it settled confidentially.
Probably not a lot. Tony, that's interesting, because, look, I bet that attorney who represented this woman didn't know about that.
The attorney was, first of all, the attorneys that represented that individual were fantastic attorneys in Detroit. And very frankly, have a national reputation. Very good lawyers. They didn't know. Once that deposition occurred, I got a phone call.
Yeah, and right? I've been there. I think on both sides, look, we try to do the best we can, and we can only work with what information we're given, right? So normally I'm pretty good at smelling it out. If something smells fishy, and I always ask, do you have any criminal history, things like that. But there is instances, right, where maybe the client on both sides, I'm sure you've dealt with it too, is not being fully candid with you or is exaggerating. And there's nothing worse than being in the middle of a case that we devote, because from our side, we don't get paid by the hour.
Right.
We get paid if we win.
I know.
And if we win,
That's right.
$100, we ain't making any money, So we have to be very careful on the cases that we take. And it affects our credibility too. Like there's some attorneys who are known, I think, for filing any type of case no matter what, right? And that pervades everything because then they get a good case and it's already looked at skeptically by the insurance company. Would you agree?
I couldn't have said it better myself. First off, we've had cases where I've had to fire clients because they weren't honest with me.
Yeah.
Because it is a credibility issue. It's a credibility because, I love all the clients that I have, but clients come and go. Your reputation stays. And you got to make arguments to a court. And if you're not being honest, or if you're taking cases that are always on the fringe, you lose credibility, not just with the other side, but also with the court. And that's your reputation.
That's your reputation. Yeah. Because just so everybody knows, when we file anything with a court, on the very front page, it has the client's name, the case number, and then our name and our firm's name. And so that's the first thing that the court reads. And, I've had judges tell me, they see the attorney's firm name and they roll their eyes and they're already looking at it skeptically because of the reputation that they have. And I fired clients too. I had one case when I first was very young and started out, and you don't get to pick and choose back then. Right. You work on with what your boss gives you. And it was this guy, same thing, auto accident, claimed he was totally disabled and then he needed a caregiver. Well, the defense attorneys in that case started deposing people and digging and digging and digging. And when you dig and dig, stories can fall apart. Sure. And I remember in this case, the guy's like, oh yeah, he was this big dude. He was probably weighed like 250 pounds. He's like, I think his name was like Bubba, okay? in Detroit. And he said, yeah, I can't do anything. I need help like getting up and down the stairs and stuff. And then his caregiver came in and his caregiver said, yeah, I carry his naked body from the shower up and down the stairs. And they're like, well, describe the house for me. And the guy couldn't even describe the house. I just remember walking out of that thing. I was like, this is a fraud thing. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I can't be involved in this case. And I withdrew. And the defense attorney actually shook my hand and said, I admire that you withdrew from a case. Not many lawyers would do that. Yeah. But I don't want to be in that position either because it affects all of us. So anyways, okay. So that's kind of a McDonald's case gone downhill. Tell me about some of your crazy complex cases, because you don't just do like the auto accident case. You do some crazy, really, truly cases gone wild.
There's a case that I defended about 4 years ago. It was the sex, lies, and videos tape case.
Okay, sex, lies, and videos. See, this is case gone wild.
Yeah, it was an amazing case. I get the complaint in, and by the way, I got into the case maybe about 3 months after the lawsuit had initially been filed.
Okay.
I get the case assigned.
What kind of case is it?
Yeah, it's an intentional infliction of emotional distress / a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, the complaint read like a movie. It was my client, who was a 50-year-old doctor,
wow, was
essentially taking advantage of a 28-year-old female. And
like a patient? Or
No. This was like a relationship. Like he brainwashed her using his might and all of his expensive cars and his bank account.
Like a sugar daddy.
Yeah, like a sugar daddy, to convince her and bring her into his harem. And
that's illegal. They better lock me up.
No, I'm telling you. But so the complaint read like, he's feeding her alcohol and drugs and a whole bunch of very crazy allegations.
And this is in a public lawsuit.
Public pleading. And, it read like, almost to like twist the guy's arm to settle the case, because allegations like that can have a huge impact.
Yeah, they're
on someone's
disastrous.
livelihood. Well, on someone's livelihood as being a doctor.
You could lose your law license or your medical
Sure.
license. They could take it away. That because in our profession, like part of our ability to practice is based on good character, right? And
absolutely.
If you're doing that type of stuff, you could get in big trouble, reputational damage. So this was all put in a complaint. Obviously, they weren't together in a relationship anymore.
They weren't.
Okay.
They weren't. So how it started is, my guy was a refugee, came here when he was like 10 years old, the doctor, and he goes to like a different state with his family. They settle down, and education was huge in the family, and this is a land of opportunity, so he's going to go to school. And he did that. He went to school, went to great universities across the country, and he focused primarily on his studies and then the practice of medicine. By the time he looks up, he's 50 years old. He's only been in maybe 1 or 2 relationships. He's about 5'6", 150 pounds, soaking wet, and has had trouble in the dating scene. So he then takes to the apps. Didn't do apps, but I'm a little bit older.
Apps, man, were the way to go when I was.
It is now.
Yeah.
It is now. I think I met my wife in '97, so it was a little bit different back then. The internet just, I think, came out. But so he took to the apps, and this 28-year-old plaintiff, she lived at home with her parents, was going to school, didn't have a job, no source of income, but through social media background search, she liked the finer things in life. I mean, she liked the Louboutin shoes, Gucci, but she didn't have, she had a Kirkland bank account from Costco. I mean, she didn't have the means to get there.
Sounds like my ex. Okay,
Yeah. So she goes there, and she's like, how am I going to fulfill my needs, right? So she takes to the apps and looks
Matches
for people
with this guy.
who can fill my needs. Nothing wrong with that, but how can I fill my needs? And so she basically tells my guy, hey, let's meet up. Let's get together. She can see who he is.
Right.
She can see his credentials, and you can see who she is. I
So
mean,
she's like a mark. Almost.
He's a mark. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He was a mark. And they enter into the relationship, and she took her out for sushi, and that'll become important later on when we go through this story. Likes sushi, alcohol, and saw that he had fine cars, loved his house in Bloomfield, loved it. So she was hook, line, and sinker, and she set the hooks into him.
Right. And how long did they date or whatever?
So the relationship went on and off for about 3 years.
Okay,
And
so it wasn't like a one night thing.
No, it wasn't, but it was kind of interesting because the relationship would wax and wane depending on how many gifts he was showering her with, right?
Man.
So he's convincing himself that this is the love of his life. He found she's, to him, a knockout. She's a 5'10" blonde, thin, wears very promiscuous, dress. So he's convinced he's head over heels. So he's
in love.
He's hooked, right? And she, unbeknownst to him, behind his back, is laughing, with her friends, saying this guy's ugly. I'm gonna basically squeeze this guy for everything. He didn't know that then; he knows it now. And so every time she would send him she'd go on online shopping, send him screenshots like, hey, buy me this, hey, buy me this, hey, buy me that, address here, give me this.
Oh my God.
Let's go out. And that would go on. And as he got cheaper, as he felt comfortable, as we all do, all men get, at first we're giving you everything. As it goes on, that's the real test of a woman. My wife thinks I'm probably the cheapest guy in the world, but she's still with me. But as that kind of went downhill, she'd move away, move off the scene, be less in contact, give him the cold shoulder. And the relationship never really, at its height, never went more than 2 days a week.
Okay.
Once every other week. To him, that was a lot because he was used to nothing. But this was a part-time gig for her.
So where did things go wrong in this?
Well, the rope-a-dope happened a couple times. Okay, I'm going to go away from you. You come back. You give me more gifts, back and forth. And then finally, she just came to the conclusion that this guy's just cheap. I mean, he was literally buying her Kirkland stuff from Costco. And she's
hey,
like,
man, there's some good Kirkland stuff, bro. I got some in my kitchen right now.
I got 3 daughters. That's all we shop at, man.
Yeah.
It's funny because when
this girl didn't appreciate the Kirkland
it's funny
brand.
when I go to work sometimes and I'll see someone wearing the same exact shirt. I'm like, Kirkland? He's like, yeah, Kirkland.
Yeah.
So we're in the Kirkland Club. And that's the only club I belong to, the Sam's Club. So she at the very end essentially just says, okay, hey, look, let's break it down. If you give me X, I'll give you Y.
Oh, so she just went pure transactional.
She was like, you know what? Let's go pure. This guy's not getting it. Let's go
yeah.
pure transactional. And unbeknownst to him, she's laughing with the girlfriends and says that she's learned this idea from watching The Girlfriend Experience on Showtime.
I don't know that show.
Well, I looked it up, and it's where these escorts basically sell men the girlfriend experience. Like, I'll be your girlfriend, but it's all a transaction.
You got to pay.
And at that time, he's like blown away, like he's devastated, right? And I should back up, because during the relationship, it was when they saw each other, when he was actually paying for sushi or giving her good gifts. I mean, the sex was on.
Yeah.
It was on, right? And not only that, she's like, let's make some tapes, right? So they're making tapes.
Videotapes.
There you go. That's the videotapes.
Yeah.
Let's make some tapes.
Now this is where it gets wild.
It gets real wild. I mean, there's a lot of tapes, and there's a lot of,
Now, are all these tapes exchanged in the lawsuit? So you're getting to watch these tapes, or
they were, and they've all been subsequently destroyed. But
so you are in the office with like a bunch of young associates, and you're like, here's your project today. You need to go watch all these sex tapes.
It was so funny. I took a young clerk. It's the funniest thing you say that. Took a clerk, very, very smart kid, but he may have been a lawyer for less than he may not have been a lawyer. And so my first assignment was like, hey, summarize these tapes. And then I get a call from the department that does like overflow, like typist work.
Yeah.
Because he dictated it. And she's like, yeah, he's getting kind of very specific on some of the stuff in the videos. Like, do we have to get this specific? I'm like, I call him.
That's a touchy issue, man. Like somebody's walking by like, hey, Bill, how's your day going? And then there's like a porno going on in the background.
Well,
and it's like, no, dude. No, this is for a client. Don't look down here. This is for a client.
No, it was all the attorneys in the case. We kept it segregated, and we kept them in a room because, as an owner of a company, I'm very
that's a sensitive thing.
But even on evidence, we're very sensitive.
You
to
have
that
to be
stuff.
sensitive with evidence. We've had some crazy stuff, dude. I have had human tissues in my freezer at work before. It's labeled. It's sitting next to the
roast beef.
Yeah, the roast beef and meatballs. So don't take that one. That's the human tissue. Okay, so. All right, so we got sex tapes, and this thing goes wrong, and so what happens?
He is devastated. He's like, he just came to the realization that she's not who he thought she was. This is not someone he's going to marry. And she has dangled that out to him, like
she's manipulating.
We can marry, yeah,
conniving.
She is. She's smart.
Professional.
She's very smart. Very. This is not some weak, meager person who's taken advantage of. My client, although his age would suggest he's more mature, he, in terms of the dating scene and the sex scene, he's extremely immature. Okay?
I mean, that can happen, man. I got a guy, one of my best friends is a lawyer in Wisconsin, and he ended up meeting this girl on this OnlyFans. Do you know this OnlyFans?
I've heard about this.
Or through like a website or through an app or something. And he had almost the same thing happen. Now, there was no lawsuit, at least not yet. But, it was like he got rope-a-doped in and taken advantage of. And she was seeing other guys at the same time and on sugar daddy websites, because there's apparently all these different sites now where it's almost like easy. And I think it almost makes it like more like acceptable. It's still not like totally...
No. Today, in today's society, I mean, it's funny you say that, because to me, I'm like, whoa. But when I ask the young cats coming up, they're like, oh, yeah, dude, we all do this. Like, we all run sites. Like, this is the norm. Like, it'd be weird to meet somebody in church or at a bar. Like, you don't meet, or in school.
Right.
You meet them on sites, So, and it's funny because when you get to trial, if you had to try these cases, you got to be cognizant of who your audience is. And half of them may be on those sites, So it may not be as explosive as you think when you first, uncover that material. But with her... she was like, I know the guy's rich, right? So intuitively, she's like, well, I could file a lawsuit, claim some things. I'm gonna get what I think I'm owed from this.
So she sues this guy after the relationship kind of dissolves or whatever. And so she says, what kind of lawsuit is it? I mean, you can't sue someone for sex money, because you can't sue people for illegal things.
It's like anything else. They all sue for intentional infliction, emotional distress.
That's a rare claim. Just
stalking.
Okay, stalking is something. But just so our viewers understand, our non-lawyers, intentional infliction of emotional distress, I can't tell you the last time I fought a case like that. What that means is someone has to do something like so offensive and intentional that they're like trying to ruin your life. It has to be so outrageous, right? I forget the standard, but it's like
extreme and outrageous conduct goes beyond all bounds of human decency that would cause someone severe emotional stress.
It's very rare. I think the
rare.
last case, there was a case against Detroit 911 operator. The guy's like, my mom is dying. My mom is having a heart attack. She's dying on the floor in front of me. And the operator was like laughing at them and being like, oh, I'm going to go eat a sandwich. Like, good luck. It was crazy. That was found to be intentional and outrageous. Yeah. But that is like the bar. I mean, that's a high bar. So, okay, so what happens?
Well, why it's important, though, is as I told you guys, or told you earlier, in terms of like the sex tapes, the claim then was he surreptitiously, without her knowledge, was on some clandestine mission to videotape them having sex.
Oh, so she said he taped them secretly?
Yeah, which is there's cases on that would be
severe
emotional
you
stress.
cannot
Can't do
secretly tape people having sex. You can do it if everybody agrees.
Right.
But where was the camera? Like, was it a camera like we have right here out in the open? Or
John, the camera is like, just like looking into the camera, like everyone's waving.
Was she waving? Was she like?
There was like, you know, there was admissions that she knew that they were being taped. So and then it changed to be like, oh well, he was supposed to destroy him on a certain date. I mean, it just kind of evolved.
Yeah.
But there was never a point. Now we had to get all this stuff in discovery, and there was
man, what a nasty case to have to go through, man. That's
I mean, the text message. I mean, it was like my little girls texting. I mean, how many texts? It's like pouring over these things. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean that was the basic claim. And my guy's like, this is not good, and I want to
now.
Fight this.
Do you even have is there insurance for something like this?
Doesn't matter to me. And here's the reason I say that is because when I get a call from a carrier saying it's potentially covered claim, I'm hiring you to represent them. I divorce myself. Whatever goes on, and whether or not there's a deck action or whether or not there's ultimately insurance coverage is irrelevant to me. I have a relationship with the client.
But like in a case, I get that. Yeah. But in a case like this, did the doctor have to pay out of pocket, or was there an insurance policy that?
Well, there was there was an insurance policy that I think there was a deck action filed.
And so what that means is, for our viewers who are non-lawyers, is sometimes you have a close call in a lawsuit as to whether your insurance would cover it, and the insurance company says, we're going to give you a lawyer, but it's our position we don't have to cover this. But just to be safe, here's a lawyer, because if they don't do that, they could be held responsible if it's ultimately determined that they should have given you a lawyer.
Right, and what smart plaintiff lawyers do, and the lawyer on the other side was a smart lawyer, knew what he was doing. They file enough claims to...
You just need one to stick.
You just need one, right?
Yeah.
So they had invasion of privacy, and they had a bunch of claims. Maybe had negligence in there. So there was a host of claims, and the complaint read like a gone wild story. This is
crazy. So what happens? What happens after you guys review all this pornography at the office?
Yeah, so there's several deps taken, and these deps were over the course of 3 days. And 3 days. Yeah, they were like 7 hours apiece.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I took her plaintiff's deposition 3 times. Now, pre-suit, before I got involved in this suit, another lawyer had the case, and he had actually suggested that they not do any surveillance.
And so surveillance is, for people that don't know, is you will hire like a private investigator to follow around the opposing party.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
To see, like you talked about in that, it wasn't really surveillance in that McDonald's crowbar case, but you had video of something that contradicted what she was saying in court, basically.
Right. The McDonald's, that they just run their 24-hour.
That was
brother is like no one's going to break and enter.
But this is you have a guy go out.
I specifically have a guy go out, and we do them on select cases. It's a very dangerous thing in certain cases because juries may not like it. But in this case, 30,000-foot view. I know that this 28-year-old isn't sitting at home on a Friday night after my dep.
Well, why did you have surveillance? I mean, she wasn't claiming she was brain damaged and in a wheelchair. So what was your thought on?
I believe that my guy wasn't the only mark out there. I believe that this was a full-time job, that she was going around and luring older, gullible, desperate men who were eager to get the girlfriend experience.
Yeah.
And this wasn't the first time. So, I mean...
So you thought she was doing this with other people.
I had a hunch.
Yeah.
Pretty good hunch. I mean, she shows up to the first dep, and she's wearing a mini skirt. I mean, stiletto heels. And I'm like, yeah, she's not going... She's not going to
go out? Or
yeah,
no?
right.
Okay.
She ain't going to church after this meeting.
So what happened?
So I call up my investigator. I'm like, look, she's going to leave. I want you to follow, do the surveillance after day one. He follows her. Within a half hour of that deposition concluding, he's
Wait, straight from the dep?
Straight from the dep.
All right, so she's at a lawyer's office giving sworn testimony, and she was dressed up to go out.
Yeah.
So she leaves the dep, doesn't even go home. She just goes to where? Where does she go?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Thanks, John, for asking. Because the investigator's like, I got her at a sushi restaurant.
Well, what's wrong? Come on, Tony.
No,
I like sushi, buddy, for the record.
I love sushi too, but she's got an MO. She got sushi, she's got some drinks, and then she gets, the guy. Consummated the deal.
Guy.
Right. So I said, okay, I go, who's she there with? He got pictures. It's like a 57-year-old man. I'm like, well, that ain't her dad, because I just looked on Facebook, and her brother looks a little bit younger than that. So I said, okay, well, keep on it. Just keep me posted. Half hour after that, he calls me. Brother, you will not believe this. I go, let me guess, she's at a hotel. Huh. She's at a hotel.
No way.
With the 57-year-old man.
No way.
And it's not my client. So
but he was getting the girlfriend experience.
He was getting the girlfriend experience.
So what? So what happened with the case? What happened with the case?
Well, we're not done yet, because I go back. I said, okay, we know who this guy is. They're like, no, because he never left, and I couldn't see. He came with her, and he couldn't get the plate. It was something happened where we couldn't figure out who he was. I go, God, good evidence, but not great evidence, because she can lie about it. She can go, oh, my brother's in from out of town, or I was there to meet somebody, and if I don't trust her, she'll just find a way out. We take her dep again. This time, I asked them all questions like, hey, do you ever go out to, I don't know, vacation? No, I just stay at home. Do you ever go to hotels? Haven't been to a hotel in years. Great.
Lying.
Leave it there.
She would have been better off just saying, yeah, I just gave a dude the girlfriend experience 2 days ago. It would have been
more believable, and the truth.
Yeah, the truth.
And be separate, mutually exclusive of what she's dealing with my guy. Right. So I don't ask her any more questions other than just to seal it in to where she just lied.
She's a big liar. Fat liar, which is what they hate.
And so the next step, I call my guy. I said, okay, we're going to do the same thing. I'll follow her again. And wouldn't you know, 2 for 2. I'm batting 1,000. I should play baseball, because 2 for 2. Sushi, same guy, same hotel. This time we get his plates, and now we can find out who he is. After that time, we then go, and I said, investigator, let's find this guy. Let's go to his house
and talk to him.
Let's interview him. Now, we know he's married, at least according to our research. So it's like, I'm not sure how the relationship is. It was a foreign last name, so I'm not sure what arrangement was going on there.
Yeah.
But I said, let's not do it at home, because I don't want to.
You don't want to ruin the family.
No, that's not my point. That's not my purpose. I just want to defend my guy without causing issues in other people's relationships.
Right.
So what we do is, I say, wait till significant other leaves, or follow the guy, and then meet up with him and talk to him. He does, and he's like, I don't want to lose my wife. I'm like, dude, just get the statement as what they were doing. They were in the room. They were having
girlfriend
sex,
experience,
blah, blah, blah. So next step goes on, and I run through it. Lie. Don't know the guy. Never seen him. I've never been out with anyone other than my own age.
Oh, my gosh.
If she was playing Texas Hold'em, she went all in. Just went all in on
Big
this.
mistake.
And then what I usually don't do, I knew we were never trying this case. There was never a point where my client, a doctor, is going to defend those allegations in court, because she'll say anything
to
defame him. And regardless of the truthfulness or veracity or the lack thereof of the allegations, she's going to drag him through the mud, and every employer in town is going to want to distance themselves.
Right.
So I knew
That's like,
if I needed leverage, this is the time. So I went the whole, let's go to the tape on this one.
and what did the attorney and she do when you showed the tape?
Attorney was like, F-bomb, because, the lawyer's a good lawyer. And he realized that the leverage just shifted significantly.
And he probably didn't know his client was a complete liar either.
No,
she was
no,
selling him
no
a bag
knowledge,
of goods.
No knowledge.
Did the case go away then?
It did go away. It did go away. But it was funny because when she was doing the sob story, like, oh, I'm poor me, go to the tape, the look in her eyes changed from, like, she wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
And then she goes, I'll never forget this, what else do you have? I knew right then, game, set, match. We resolved the case.
You gave her the lawyer experience.
Yeah, we did.
You gave her the good lawyer experience.
We resolved it confidentially.
Dude, that is a crazy, crazy case gone wild. I had surveillance as a plaintiff. It's very rare. A handful of times in my career that I've ever done surveillance, because a lot of times surveillance is used to show that somebody's lying about the injuries, right? Or something like that. Or in this case, that they had a pattern in practice. I do have a case gone wild involving surveillance of a defense attorney.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Wasn't me, was it?
No, it wasn't you, bro. Don't worry. This was like about 10 years ago, and it was an insurance defense attorney, and the guy was not very honest. And so we had like a lot of problems with butt heads. There was a lot of dishonesty going on. And we were ready to go to trial, and we appear for trial. Now, getting and appearing for trial, it's not like you just wake up and walk to the courthouse. You know how it is. There's literally like weeks of preparation. You have to pay all this money. You set your schedule. It's a lot that goes into it. So we show up to trial, and the defense attorney sends one of his associates and says, we have to move the trial. He's having a mental breakdown. Oh my God. He cannot, he's sick. Judge, here's some medical records to show that he needs hospital care and that we need to move the trial. Now, normally, if that happened, I'd be like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Of course we will move the trial. Like if you told me that this or, whatever, you had a problem, no problem. This guy was a liar though. And so I'm like, I don't believe this. And the judge said, well, he gave us these records, these medical records. I couldn't see them because it was like filed under seal. And I'm like, I don't believe this guy at all because he did not want to go try the case. So I called a private investigator and I said, go and see if this guy's at his office. So we get a call at about 11 o'clock that night. She's like, oh yeah. No, this guy was at his office all day. He wasn't at the psych ward or anything. He was at his office, but I got one better for you, John. He then left his office at about 4 o'clock, walked to the liquor store, bought a 6-pack and a bottle, and was just drinking it and hanging out. So he had just told the judge that he had this whole crisis that required like immediate medical care, and he was hitting happy hour.
Yeah. He had trialitis. That's what we call it.
Yeah,
right?
trialitis.
Yeah.
So we showed that to the judge, which, this is not something I would ever want to have to do. Mm-hmm. But it was just fraud kind of upon the court and fraud upon us. And it's one and only time I've ever actually done something like that. But the judge was very upset, and the case settled.
But it goes to what you were saying earlier about credibility, right? You wouldn't have done that with somebody who didn't have a lot of credibility, right?
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So, well, case has gone wild. All right, I think we have one more crazy case, Tony, that you can tell us about before we say goodbye to our listeners and viewers today?
I got a crazy case. It's a sad case, difficult case, complex case. It's a case where I represented a defense contractor, like a paramilitary organization.
Like a mercenary?
Not necessarily. It's basically the government will hire contractors to do certain work overseas in hostile environments.
Okay, but when you say contractor, is this dude like building a a house.
Oh, okay. No,
I mean,
that's fair enough. No, I mean these guys are all who are employed by my client, at least in this case, were Marine snipers, Green Berets, Special Forces, Navy SEALs. These individuals are hired to essentially transport U.S. diplomats, dignitaries from different points in hostile environments.
So this is like TV movie stuff.
Yeah,
This is
TV.
like Special Forces, privately hired. So it's a private company.
Yep.
And they're paid but they get to carry guns and everything else.
Carry
right?
guns. They're on a U.S. They're on a base in Iraq. There's other military people there. The Department of State's stationed there. There's other military from other countries stationed on this particular base. And base is a strong word. It's just a little bit smaller size base.
What year is this?
2009.
Okay, so we're going to go back. That's the Iraq War still going on?
Yeah, there's still some hostility. There's still losses, casualties. It's still a very dangerous place to be. It's kind of during that rebuild process where you have a certain segment that don't want the rebuild to happen. So
there's a Taliban and stuff, right?
There is. So it's a very dangerous, hostile, high pressure, high anxiety place. And so my client employs, I think we got about 100, 150 individuals on that particular base.
So you represent the company that hires and provides these special forces dudes to go over there under a contract. So the government's paying the company, right? And
That's right.
The company's paying these guys.
That's right. And in this case, I represented the company, the contractor, as well as about 20 of its employees who were on the base at the time of this incident. The plaintiffs were the family members of another employee of my client, and it wasn't, it centered on essentially a accidental death, an accidental shooting of one of my client's employees. And the case is brought by the decedent's family.
All right, so just so we understand,
Sure.
so the plaintiff guy, my type of work, the plaintiff is a guy who worked, like a special ops guy who worked for this company and got killed in Iraq.
Well, yeah, and it wouldn't be the plaintiff in this case, and just so I can,
It's
shed
his
some
family.
light on it, is the actual decedent, my client's employee. There cannot be a wrongful death case because they have something called the Defense Base Act. So if you're injured,
I've never even heard of this before.
It's kind of like work comp. If you're injured during the employment on the base, your exclusive remedy is to be paid by and through this Defense Base Act, so you get your pay quickly for your family, and it's a certain amount. So the decedent couldn't bring the case, or the estate of the decedent couldn't bring the wrongful death case, so they had to come up with some other theory of liability.
And what was the theory?
Theory was intentional infliction of
We're back
emotional
to
distress.
we're
I'm
back
telling
to
you, it's like
intentional
you say,
infliction, dude.
You
What?
say there's no cases. It's like I specialize in these cases.
I got to start filing these cases apparently. Yeah. Well, not the ones we talked about on the show today.
Yeah.
That's but okay, so the guy dies in Iraq on a base. He's a special forces dude, and his family sues the company for his death. Now, did you have to go? Was this like in Baghdad, like court? Were you putting out?
No. It was in U.S. District Court in Michigan.
Okay, federal court.
Federal court, yeah, and. So the families, their theory of liability was essentially not over the death itself, but the insinuation and the communication that they say happened, which is that their child committed suicide.
Well, tell us what happened so we can understand this case.
So what happens is that the decedent goes out on a mission with several other of my client's employees.
Like a special operations
Special
mission?
operation, taking some particular person and traveling to another point within Iraq. And
so like Black Hawk Down stuff.
Yeah, it's very intense, very high anxiety. They go out, they come back from the mission, and then they're on a day, maybe off 3 days, and back on, because it's a lot of planning that goes into these things. It's a mission, right?
Yeah.
So they come back.
And you can get killed.
And you can get killed, and very frankly, someone can kill who they're trying to protect, which is more important to these guys. But when these guys come back, they want to blow some steam off. They go to one of the rooms, and they're drinking. Not supposed to be drinking, but they're drinking. And
so you can't, because I see like on these movies, these war movies and shit, they're always getting fucked up when they come back from the missions.
Yeah.
But I guess you can't do that.
You can't. It's supposed to be a zero tolerance policy. But they come back, they start drinking, and the decedent, and a guy's at a computer, one of their buddies at a computer playing like music, and they're playing like rap music. So the decedent like gets up onto the bed, just starts, waving the gun around.
Waving his
9mm, waving a 9mm around, kind of like, like gangster style, and screwing around. His best friend, who was in the Marine Corps with, jumps on the bed with him.
Was he shooting the gun or
was
no?
not shooting the gun, just, mimicking.
Waving it around.
Like
Was
he's in
it
a rap
loaded?
video. Well, we'll get there. No one knew it was loaded, but it was loaded.
Okay.
His best friend jumps up on the bed, and these guys always horseplay. So now they're tussling around in the bed, wrestling, and then they jump back up, and rap music's still going on. And all of a sudden, the decedent racks the gun.
So when you rack the gun, tell us what
Supposedly,
that means for people.
it's to clear the chamber to make certain that there's nothing in the gun. Like
So when you rack
clear.
it, it's like
Yeah.
you like pull the slider back, right?
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. And then he gives the gun to his best friend, places it in his hand, turns it around on himself, and basically
Why would he do
encourages-
that?
Well, unbeknownst to the other guys in the room, these two individuals were snipers in the Marine Corps. And there's this little known thing, a game called the Trust Me game. And this game is where you have two comrades basically taking a gun, clearing it, giving it to the best friend, the comrade, and saying, "Trust me, I didn't put a bullet in that chamber. Trust me." That's how much trust there has to be between these guys.
So in this game between snipers, a guy takes the other guy's gun or his own,
Yep.
supposedly takes the bullets out of it,
Yep.
cocks it, and then gives it to him and says, "Shoot yourself, pull the trigger."
No,
basically.
shoot. Essentially, it's my gun. I'm clearing it, giving you my gun, and I'm telling you to pull the trigger on me.
Okay.
Trust me, I didn't just give you a loaded gun to shoot me.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was
And they pull the trigger and it goes click.
and and it's a high adrenaline rush, and there was testimony that this is the game that was played by them before. But no one else in the room knew this because they're maybe from in the Army, the SEALs, or whatever.
Yeah. This
they
is
don't
like
know
they
this.
have specific things in different.
They have, it's all specific. So he turns it on himself. He puts his hands over his best friend's hand, says, just do it, encouraging. What do you, chicken.
Use some more choice words.
Some more choice words. Family show.
We're not too family here, but we try to keep it. Yeah.
And the gun goes off.
What do you mean it goes off?
It was loaded.
Did he do it on purpose?
No, I mean, there's no evidence that it was done on purpose.
He missed. He left by accident.
He may-
bullet in.
like, he
And
may have
these
been
guys were
drinking.
drinking and boozing.
They're
and stuff.
drinking, boozing.
Oh my God.
I think it's just when you play stupid games, stupid
things happen.
and
We
bad
see it
things.
all the time,
Poor
man.
kid, he's on the ground. They're rushing over to him.
So he shot.
He was shot. Collapsed, done. And there's a group of kids in there who go over to try to resuscitate him, call the medics.
Oh my God.
Another group, though, start throwing some, beers away. As a matter of instinct, they're like zero tolerance, maybe throw some stuff away.
They could all get in big trouble.
Huge
right?
trouble.
Yeah, there's a death on the base of
Huge
another
trouble.
Marine. Yeah, there's going to be a murder investigation.
Huge trouble. But I mean, the theory in the case was essentially that there was a huge cover-up that there was no alcohol being used by these kids. But on the site, on the base, there's the Department of State, the regional officers who would do the investigation. And all these guys were separated immediately. And they all were like, the story I just communicated is the story that they gave. And they said, yeah, there was drinking going on. There was never a cover-up as fantastic as some of the allegations were. It was all communicated that way.
So what's the case that I don't understand, Tony, the case that the dead kid's family brought? Because you said they can't bring, like if this happened at like Seacrest Wardle or something, there might be a negligence case, general lawsuit.
Right.
But this was this was in Iraq. So what did they sue for if they couldn't?
Yeah, sure. And that's a great question. So immediately upon the death, there was a individual stationed stateside representing the company in that particular program that they were contracted to do in Iraq. He was the one that was communicating here in Michigan with the family, notifying them of the death. Now, the claim was that there was insinuations that the decedent committed suicide.
So he claims that they basically like kind of defamed by misrepresenting his death, because he didn't try to kill him. He didn't like put the gun to his head and pull the trigger.
Yeah, they were essentially saying that my client was trying to insinuate suicide, and they were doing that to cover up the drinking that was going on overseas to save a defense contract. Now, the reality, of course, is when the communication was made, the representative didn't know anything, and he was like, there was an accidental discharge, which is true, and he didn't know the circumstances because all of that investigation was being performed by the Department of State. My client was not privy to it. Now, the individuals were being questioned, but they weren't privy to it. And even within about 3 days, which is where the story gets really crazy, within 3 days of the incident, after the poor kid expires, some of those individuals who were in the room are allowed to come back to go to the funeral. And that's another reason why my client in the representative came to Michigan is to receive the body, because there's a lot of paperwork that goes on to get someone from Iraq to Michigan for the burial process, which my client took care of. But they also allowed certain individuals to come back to Michigan to visit the family, to pay the respects. And one of those individuals was the actual shooter, the best friend. And the family knew him. The family knew him as the best friend. The wife, the widow, knew him as the best friend. But the strangest thing occurred, which came out, which is once the shooter came back and he told the family that it was an accident, told the widow confidentially that he was the one whose hand was on the gun when this went off, and there was an accident. There was no suicide, so the family knew. But of course, they were mad. They lost a son, right? I mean, I get it. They wanted someone to pay for it. But in terms of the theories of the case, I think it was thin. But what's strange is that when the shooter comes back to talk to the wife, the widow, he talks to her at his family's home with the decedent's family there, talks to her upstairs.
So the shooter who gave the gun, or
the shooter who
pulled the trigger, goes to the wife of the dead guy, to like give his condolences, and say he's sorry.
Say he's sorry.
This is crazy.
And what's even crazier is that they go upstairs and they sleep with one another.
What?
You can't make
Wait
this
a minute.
stuff up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Crazy. It's crazy.
How do you have all these like sex cases?
I don't know.
This is crazy.
Again, it's like,
So the dude goes to say like, I'm sorry to the wife.
Yeah.
And then gives her the boyfriend experience.
It's incredible.
The same time that he says like, hey, I'm sorry he's dead, but why don't we go upstairs?
And I guess the theory is that, they both shared a loss of their best friend, and they want to just console each other the only way they know how, and that's how
they said goodbye to him.
And another theory is, well, was that the first time? I mean, there's a lot of
that's
questions,
crazy,
right?
That's crazy.
But it was just a strange case, and what gets lost in all this? I mean, look, cases are weird. They take weird twists.
They do.
I mean,
they go wild.
They go real wild. I mean, it's a sad case, though. I mean, that's a case. That's
a sad
case for the family, but it's a weird case. It's just weird, strange things happen.
It's weird.
And I find that in a lot of cases that, even in cases where you feel bad, it's like, this is the craziest thing. And sometimes you leave the cases, even if they get resolved confidentiality, with more questions than you do answers.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So
that's a very good point. So was this case ultimately resolved?
It was resolved. It was resolved confidentiality, which again, there's certain cases that, I love trying cases, but it's tough. One of the things I think trial lawyers got to consider on both sides is, putting their egos aside, is what is this going to do, not just to their client, but to the opposing side.
And to the families.
And the family, because, I mean, look, you'll get penalty strokes if you start doing things and forcing things where you could have resolved, and it was the best interest of of all the parties.
Everybody.
Yeah. I mean, so we resolved it.
Dude, this has been some crazy cases today. You should add on to your bio sex, lies, and
Telling you.
videotape cases, because I didn't know that you had all these crazy cases gone wild like that.
That's fun.
Thank you, Tony, for coming on the show, man.
John,
this was good,
John,
dude.
it's a pleasure, man.
This was great, man. Until next time, and I hopefully I see you soon, but hopefully not on the other side of my case, because I a little easier to.
And if I do, you got to be worried about what is lurking around the corner.
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is tell my client, make sure that you don't hit people with crowbars, go and be an escort, or have sexual relations with the other side.
Yeah.
So
Good advice. All good advice. Sean.
yeah, thanks. Okay, everyone, it's been another awesome episode of Cases Gone Wild. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Or remember, you can actually watch the video on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. And if you need legal help in anything, please contact me. www.markolaw.com is our website. We got all kind of good stuff on there. Or give us a call, 313-777-7-LAW. Until next time, this is John Marko for Cases Gone Wild.